Okay, guys, so I am back for part 2 of my video about growing up in the United Pentecostal Church. If you haven't watched part 1, go ahead and go back and watch that one before this video so you kind of have an understanding of what's going on. So, the day that I left, I told you a little bit about that, and my now husband came, picked me up. I had a little bit of clothes in a bag that I had packed, and I left that day. We worked together at Goodwill. We had met, and we had started to like each other, and it was unheard of to date a worldly guy, which means a guy who's not in the church, and to even text a guy was not okay. So I knew that I would have to hide my relationship, and I was already on the verge of wanting to leave. But the day that my mom got mad at me about the whole Facebook thing, that was the day that I just finally cracked and I couldn't take anymore, and I was ready to leave. I didn't want to be a part of the church anymore. I did not want to be married off to someone and be monitored while I date someone. I didn't want to have someone chaperone me while I'm dating someone that I barely knew from another church nonetheless, that was approved by my parents and the pastor. You really have no freedom. There's a say, but there's not a say in what you do. It's all monitored, it's all controlled. It's, even your friendships, like, you have to be friends with the people in the youth group, and if you're not friends with them, it's, like, not okay. And you can't have outside influences, you can't have friends. In high school, I felt so cut off from the world, even when I was in that little world of, being exposed to certain things. We couldn't listen to any outside music unless it was Christian. It was really cut off, even though you're living in the normal part of the world, if that even makes sense. You're cut off from so many things. You're secluded. You're in a toxic environment, and you feel like you have no way out, and it's just so oppressing. It's so hard to describe unless you're in that environment. So anyway, the day that I left, my now husband, he lived in the next town over, and I got in his car, we drove off. I started living with him, and that day, my mom started texting me, and this is really when I noticed that there was an issue with the way that my parents had parented me and how narcissistic they are. Because even though I told her that I'm leaving the church, I didn't want to be a part of it anymore. Usually, if you tell your parents before you leave the church that you're leaving, they will set you up with the pastor, and the pastor will try to lure you back in. And I didn't want to do that. When I left, I just wanted to leave. I didn't want to talk to the pastor because I knew what I wanted to do, and I didn't need another person telling me what was right and what was wrong. Because if God wanted you to be in a place of oppression, that is not the God that I wanted to serve, okay? I don't feel like a God would tell you or have someone dictate and roll over you about your life and what you can do. So anyway, the day that I left, I didn't tell my parents until I was in the next town because I knew that they would come after me. I knew that I had to get away before they even came looking for me. Unfortunately, I really wish I would have had some guidance, and I wish I would have done it another way. But okay, so I move in with my now husband. We started living together. It was the same day that I left that my mom was blowing up my phone. Um, I didn't really know how crazy this was going to get until the day I left. And let me tell you, um, oh my gosh, my husband is so patient and understanding and helped me through so much, because there is no way I would have done any of this without him. There's no way I would have been able to do any of this without him. At Goodwill, I had started making friends, and they had kind of mentioned my lifestyle, and certain things that I would mention to them. They're like, that's not really okay. And it started making sense, because when I had started college and all that, and then I had to go to that class for how to report abuse and be a mandated reporter, etc. I just started realizing so many things. Even when I was younger, I questioned everything. I was always independent. I wanted to make my own decisions. And I felt like I was shut down when I asked my parents about certain things with the religion. And the only answers I got were these little passages out of the Bible. It wasn't a real answer. It's like, can we seek out the answers and find out if this is true, if this is not true? So even at a young age, I was questioning it, but I felt so fearful of leaving. And the day that I left, I had called into my job because I knew that they might show up there. My parents, I was still on their cell phone plan, which I wish I would have got it taken care of, but I didn't know how crazy this situation was going to go. And it's so crazy when you're dealing with narcissists, when you're dealing with people in a cult, when you're dealing with it's actually kind of scary, because you leave a cult and you want to have a new life. You want to experience the things that you don't get to experience. But then you gotta work through all this trauma. You gotta figure out what you want in life. And you don't even know who you are, because someone told you what you were and what to do and how to. It's like the feeling of being a prisoner in a jail cell. They tell you what time of day to eat, when to shit, when to shower. I mean, excuse my language, but that's how I felt. So I'm on their cell phone plan, and I didn't know at the time they could track my location, because I didn't give them the address of my husband's house. I didn't give them anything. I just told them that I was leaving the church. I didn't want to be a part of it anymore, and I was staying with a friend, because I knew if they knew right off the bat that I was dating somebody, it was going to, all hell was going to break loose even worse. So I kept it at that. And I didn't go into my job because I wanted to, let things just settle over. I thought it would be fine, the next day. I mean, any parent's probably going to get mad if their kid leaves home and they don't tell them, right off the bat. But when you were dealing with my parents, you don't really get to tell them stuff right off the bat, because you're going to be in trouble. There's so many manipulation tactics, and I just knew that I needed to get out. I needed to go to a safe place and live my life and just do that. So I think it was 3 days later. I actually wasn't on the schedule to work that day, thank God. My parents walked into my work, and they tried to harass the manager and ask her certain things, like where I was, what I was doing. And I had a very good relationship with the manager. She helped me out with a lot. She helped me. She gave me a voucher for clothing. She knew the situation. She knew what was going on. And she really helped me out. They had to call the police and escort my parents out of my job. They weren't allowed to come back or enter the store. Um, so somehow they found out where I was, and they came to the house. They tried to start this huge thing with my husband, and it was just downhill all the way. I tried to repair the relationship. I tried to work with them. But the only thing that would ever make them love me is if they had the control over me and that I was in the religion that they deemed right. And I swear it took me 2 years I worked so hard. I tried to, accommodate them. I tried to be there for them. I tried to talk to them like, this is the lifestyle that I'm living now. Can you just accept it? It took me 2 years. Then my son was born, and that's what was the icing on the cake for me. Because narcissists want what you have and what they can do with what you have. So, I had my son, and then my mom became very, very manipulative and controlling. She was asking me when my son was 4 weeks old if he could go to Sunday school. Now, mind you, if my son wanted to go to church when he's old enough to speak and tell me that, then yes, he can go. But my son is 4 weeks old, and you're not gonna have my child and, convert him into this religion, and, it was just, she wanted to control the whole situation. At the hospital, she made up huge lies and called CPS, the nurses in there, to come talk to us over, I'm not gonna get into it, but it was ridiculous, and it was very uncalled for. I actually had issues after my birth because of the stress that I was under with her, and I had issues with my bladder, and it was basically a whole anxiety thing, and I don't want to talk about it on my channel. Anyway, just know that for 4 months I was dealing with this issue, and it was very hard after having a newborn and all of this stuff. Finally, as my son got a little bit older, I think he was about 9 months old, I just decided, I told my husband, I said, we're going to have to cut all ties. And because she was coming up to our house, stalking me, if I had a doctor's appointment and I asked her to take me, we lived a town away, so it's about 30 minutes. If my husband was at work to come get me, she would pick me up for my appointment in the town that I live in, and then she would say that she can't drop me off and would take me back to her place that's 30-45 minutes away, when my house is maybe around the corner or not very far from the doctor's appointment, which is more convenient. So I would have to have my husband, who worked late, come get me late at night, and I have a newborn and a young child. And so it was just getting even more toxic than when I was in my house. I don't know how to describe it, but when I was living there, because they had control over me, it was a little less controlling the way that they were acting towards me. Or maybe I just didn't realize it, but this was the icing on the cake. I decided, I still was on a cell phone plan with them. I kept trying to get them to take me off, and they kept saying they couldn't for some reason. And I realize now that was just their way of controlling the situation even more. They could see my location or whatever. So I remember I was like, okay, there's no even little contact that I can have with them. So I texted my dad and I told him, this cell phone will be in your front yard in about an hour. I will be dropping it off in your front yard. I will not come to the door. And I will no longer be talking to you guys. And before I did this, I tried to talk to my brother because he was still living at home and he had actually left the church. But he still is what talks to my parents and everything. They control a lot of what he does even though he's out, and I just didn't want that for my son. I didn't want that for me. And I'm trying to raise a family and have a different life than what I grew up in because it was so abusive, so toxic, and it's just not a way to live in fear and oppression. So I cut contact with them. They still continue to try to stalk me and stuff, and then I've had to delete social media accounts because they would make fake profiles and all kinds of things. It's kind of risky for me to be uploading this, but honestly, I really don't have a lot of fear now. I really don't, because that's all they roll their life by, is with fear and manipulation, and that's just the character of them, and I'm not really threatened by it that much. So yeah, that is pretty much how I left, and where I'm at now in my life is very, for a long time, I've never went back to church, and I probably never will, because I've researched religion, I've researched all kinds of things. I'm pretty much agnostic. I don't really believe in anything, really. Excuse me, guys. And that's where I'm at right now. I think the next video I will talk about toxic parenting and narcissism, and then when I can research the religion again, like the whole scriptures and stuff, because like I said, I really just blocked that out when I left, because I've memorized scripture. I knew them like the back of my hand, but it never made sense to me, and it still doesn't today. So I'll have to go research that, and I'll have to give you guys a very detailed video on what their religion is about and the scriptures they use and all of that. And so I think I mentioned, yeah, I haven't had contact with them for about 5 years, and literally my life changed so much. It was like when you stop talking to toxic people, your whole mindset just clears up. You don't have brain fog that much, and it's interesting, and I will talk more about that. I will give you guys some insight, maybe some tips on what to do if you need to leave a dangerous or toxic situation. And I'll kind of talk about a little bit of what I'm doing now for the sexual abuse that happened to me when I was younger, and how that has affected a lot of things in my life. And I have, I deal with mental health issues, so I'll probably discuss that a little bit. I have CPTSD, PTSD, anxiety, depression. It's a lot of things. But yeah, I will talk about how to get help for that and other things. So if you want to subscribe to my channel, go ahead, and I will be uploading more videos. I'm not sure when, because this is kind of mentally exhausting, but I promise you that I will be making videos, and if you have any questions, you can ask below, and I might do a Q&A type thing. Alright guys, have a good day.